who speaks for our region? Because economies have become regional in nature. There is no Mountain Brook economy or Hoover economy. It's all integrated. The study that we did in 2017 clearly shows that fragmented communities are starting behind the starting line with regard to economic development, with regard to those communities, those regions that are more unified. So if we're starting behind the starting block, we have to be more strategic just to compete.
Hello, I'm Angela Abdul-Rashid, your host for the Prosper Connector podcast. This is a place where information is shared, connections are made, and great Birmingham stories are told by great Birmingham people. Hello, I'm Angela Abdul-Rashid. Welcome to the Prosper Connector podcast. Today, we have an amazing guest with us, Chris Nanni, President and CEO of Our Community Foundation. Thank you for being here with us today.
It's my pleasure to be here.
We are so excited. There's so much, I think, that we think we know about Our Community Foundation, but I hope that you're here and you will enlighten us about the impact that's been made for now almost how many years? Since 1959.
59 is when we were founded,
yes, I did my homework. For a very long time in our community. But first, before we talk about Our Community Foundation, we have to talk about food. Because when people, and by people I mean me, think about Birmingham, we think about food. So what about you? When you think of Birmingham and you think of a food, what food comes to mind?
Okay, so I was a little bit nervous about this question.
You're
I knew
not
you were
the
going to
first.
ask it. I've seen the other podcasts. I am not a foodie. And so I would say I don't eat a lot of barbecue, but when I do eat barbecue, I've always been attracted to the white sauce.
I love it.
And I didn't know until I just learned recently that the white sauce was formulated here in Alabama. It's an Alabama product, and what I like about it is that it is deeply rooted in Southern tradition, but yet it's a twist, an entrepreneurial twist to a new creation. And to me, that's what Birmingham is undergoing. We're deeply rooted in the past, but yet we're reinventing ourselves for the future. And it's also something I really like.
Chris, that's the perfect answer.
Okay, good.
And a great segue, too, because I think not only did you just describe Birmingham, but you also described Our Community Foundation. We just said since 1959, you all have been impacting the greater Birmingham community, and I've seen an evolution, but I want you to talk a little bit more about your role as president and CEO and sort of walk us through the Community Foundation.
Sure, thanks. So we were founded in 59, but what a lot of people don't realize is we were a volunteer-run organization until the mid-90s. So our first leader, Sheila Blair, was the first paid person, first paid executive director. Margaret Spain was the volunteer leader prior to that. And then Mimi Tynes and then Kate Nielsen was the president that preceded me. And when I look at Kate's work, phenomenal work, she really took the organization, even though we were a number of decades, of existence, she really took us through our infancy and really sort of professionalized and got our name out there and did some incredible things. I see when I came in 2014 is really kind of building off of that. And I still really feel like we're in our adolescence. So we still have a long way to go. But I would say that where we've evolved the Community Foundation, so right now we're the largest foundation in the state asset-wise. So we're right around $350 million in assets. And about half of what we do are what are called donor-advised funds. And that's really helping people with their own personal philanthropy. The other half are through planned gifts and endowments that we've established through the years. Our goal is to grow donors, to make planned gifts to benefit our community in perpetuity. So when you look at that half, that's what the nonprofit sector knows us by. And traditionally, we've been doing general grant making. So we have 2 grant cycles. People write grants to us. And what we did in 2014 is we reserved about a quarter of that payout. Instead of it all going to general grant making, we reserved a quarter of that to take on issues proactively.
Wow.
So areas where people wouldn't necessarily write a grant to us for. We also have a set of funds called Catalyst funds, which Kate was ingenious in creating, which are really to take on these big ticket items in our community. And so the combination of those two areas, those two funds, really allows us to take on what I like to say is these underlying issues in our community that act as barriers and hold us back. So we started in 2014 with looking at the homicide rate, which was one of the highest in the country. And we brought in a model called Focused Deterrence, the Violence Reduction Initiative. And we brought the mayor, the chief of police, the U.S. attorney, and the district attorney together and said, here's a model. It's a data-driven model to drive down homicides. Do you want to participate in it? They loved it. And so we did that for 3 years. And I think it was some of our best work at the foundation. But I think more importantly, it showed us and our board that we're not just a responsive organization, that we can be active in taking on these larger issues in our community. And so that led to a groundbreaking report in 2017 on our regional fragmentation called Together We Can, that was done by Parka. And we had a community-led group that kind of facilitated all of that. And then that led us proactively to bring the mayors together and to do a deep dive that we facilitated. And it led to a no poaching agreement. It was funny because one of our issues is the poaching of businesses from one city to another, and you're spending dollars and incentives to steal companies from one another, and it does nothing to grow our jobs in our region. And you're spending precious resources. It also instills a sense of competitiveness and ill will among the different municipalities. So when we went to take that on, we were issue agnostic. The deep dive was, let's go with what the mayors want to do. And people told us if they talk about or if they bring up no poaching of businesses, good luck, it's been tried before, it's never going to happen. I actually had a CEO of a major corporation just say, never going to happen, it's been tried. They selected that issue, the mayors did themselves. Within 6 months, we had all the mayors sign on to no poaching agreement. So those are the type of things that we also have had a major thing in bringing microtransit funding and bringing microtransit to help reinvent public transportation in our region. And now over 25% of Birmingham's covered by microtransit. It's taken an hour and a half bus ride down to 15 minutes. And now we're focusing currently on a model to reinvent mental health and how mental health is delivered, and we're really excited about that.
I love the complexity of varying ways you all are meeting needs, identifying needs, using data to direct you as to where the funds go, where the effort and energy goes, and also bringing the community. If you can bring mayors in our municipalities together, kudos to you, hats off. But it truly is sort of a holistic approach, I see, that our community foundation is doing. So much work has been done since 2014, and we're looking now at 2025 and the impact of your vision for this year. What's on the horizon? What are you looking at, working on, partnering with, thinking about, desiring to see come through the work that your team and you are doing?
So we're going to continue to work on the initiatives that we're working on. A big one is mental health, and we're working with Blue Cross and Blue Shield. We've been working with them for over a year of integrating mental health into primary care practices. They just allocated $1 million for a pilot, and we're going to help fund the training of the clinics to participate in this. And it's a really fascinating model. It's a national model. There have been over 30 research studies done that show the effectiveness. About 90% of mental health can be dealt with in this manner, and it's a cost savings for insurance companies. So we're really, really excited about. It's called collaborative care. So we're focusing on that this year. But I would say we met as a staff, and I would say that our focus this year is really on stability in the nonprofit sector and being a unifying force in our community. We feel that those two things are needed right now. I would say whatever side you were, we're a nonpartisan group. I would say that what we've experienced in the last couple months is similar to what we experienced during COVID, the uncertainty in the nonprofit sector. There's a lot of fear out there. We were talking about, we held a webinar a couple weeks ago with Bing Edwards, who just joined our board of Fortive, and on just providing legal responses to the concerns and questions that the nonprofit sector has. We had over 200 people sign up for that. And there's just a lot of fear and angst out there because well over 30% of our nonprofits receive federal funding.
Right.
And there's so much ambiguity in the executive orders that they don't know, does this apply? Do I have to give this up? What if I do that? And so we're trying to provide some stability to the nonprofit sector, that we're here for them. And then also being a unifying force. We want to bring people from different perspectives in the same room to have dialogue. And we have 2 woven together events this year, and we're focusing both of them on helping to build unity.
Why is that important, Chris?
Because I think for our community to move forward, we are the most fragmented community in the Southeast, and there are a lot of repercussions, and especially with economic development. Our system we're the only industrial city in the Southeast, and so our history has been that the centers of power have grown up where the resources are. We suffer the same fates as the Buffaloes, the Pittsburghs, the Detroits, and so our sort of ethos has been one of competition over cooperation. And so that's when I talk to people, I ask them, who speaks for our region? Because economies have become regional in nature. There is no Mountain Brook economy or Hoover economy. It's all integrated. And so who speaks for our region? And the study that we did in 2017 clearly shows that fragmented communities are starting behind the starting line with regard to economic development, with regard to those communities, those regions that are more unified. So if we're starting behind the starting block, we have to be more strategic just to compete. And so overcoming that competitiveness to one of cooperation is a major shift. It seems easy, but it's not. When I met with all 35 mayors in 2017 when the report was issued, and the issue that we had to overcome before we did that deep dive was people's notion of cooperation was, you're asking me to give up something to benefit Birmingham. And we had to shift the conversation. I had to say, no. I want you to be selfish. I want you to take on a burning issue that you have for your own constituents. And I bet there is a common issue that we all have. Let's start there. So it's not so much about altruism, but about solving problems that are affecting all of us. And then once you start building that trust, then you can move on to bigger issues.
What an amazing concept. And I think that is something that would be applicable in many areas, in the nonprofit ecosystem, the business ecosystem, the list goes on and on, where you look at it from not a perspective of competition, but collaboration. We're all in this together, regardless of our zip codes.
Right.
So one thing we did not mention is that you are one of Prosper's board members. Thank you very much for your service and the work that we do, our community foundation, and you are very much a part of that. Thinking about our mission at Prosper of building the most inclusive and thriving economy in the Southeast, and the work that you're doing with our community foundation, and just the needs that you see in our area, what is your vision for the future? What would you like to see us do as an organization that you lend your service to? And we're so grateful for that. And then how can we do that all together?
So here's sort of my take. So I've been with Prosper, with Brookings prior.
Before there was a Prosper.
And I would say that I think you guys are doing amazing work. And I'm not just saying that. I think you're doing challenging work. I think it's difficult what you're trying to do, building an inclusive economy. So I've always taken issue with the rising tide lifts all boats. I think you need a rising tide. And I think it lifts a lot of boats, and you need that environment where things are growing in order to build an inclusive economy. You cannot build an inclusive economy if the economy is not growing, if it's stagnant.
Right.
And so you all and Prosper, we all are a piece of a larger puzzle. And I think what has been lacking and where I think we're making improvements on is our only regional entity regards to economic development is our BBA. And we've worked with Steve Amons when he was a county commissioner on regional cooperation stuff. He gets it. And I think he's a great person at the right institution to be able to do that. Now, if we can focus on just overall growth, then I think that makes your job and Prosper's job a lot easier, because then it's making sure that everybody's included in it. So I think it works in tandem, but we need both organizations to be thriving and strong.
And we're grateful that our community foundation is a part of that work as well. One last question for you, Chris. As we think about where we are in 2025 and you think about the successes that have been made so far and the impact that have been accomplished since you were at our community foundation, and knowing where we are in this day and age, give us one sentence of here's what we need to do to make our community what we know it should be and it needs to be.
I think we have to accelerate what we're doing. What we're trying to do is to reinvent ourselves, but are we doing it quick enough? And are we doing it at a pace that, because we're not only just competing with other cities nationally, this is international. And everybody, when you talk about our downtown, our food scene is great. I go to every city and they're all saying the same thing. Everybody's trying to be an innovation center. And so are we knowing that we're starting behind the starting line, are we doing it quick enough to be able to be relevant? You know, I'm hopeful, but my fear is that we're not moving fast enough. People don't understand this, but in 1950, we were the same size as Atlanta. And in fact, John Archibald has a great article in today's newspaper on this. 1960, we were twice the size of Nashville. Both of them went to regional forms of government. We were faced in 71 with one great city. We narrowly voted it down. Our population has gone down since then. So knowing that we're starting behind the starting line, we have to be more strategic in a sense of urgency. And I guess my question is, are we going to do the things that we need to at the pace that we need to do so to remain relevant? We used to compare ourselves to Nashville and Atlanta. Then it became Chattanooga, and now I feel like it's Jacksonville, Jackson, Mississippi, and so I feel like we keep lowering the bar, and we should be raising that. And I know some people don't like us comparing, but it is a competitive environment out there. And so are we moving at the pace that we need to do to remain relevant for the future?
Wow.
And I'm hopeful. I say that, but I'm hopeful we can do it.
Well, I think with leaders like you at the helm of organizations like our community foundation, and with the urgency in which I've seen you work and convene and collaborate with others, we'll get there, I hope.
I do, but I would say more so than the community foundation, I feel like we have a crop of young leaders in our community that look different than the leaders of decades ago. They want to be involved. They're problem solvers, and they're committed to our community. So I actually am really hopeful. We just brought on these past few years a number of just young, exciting leaders onto our board, and I think that that's what it's going to take is the investment of this younger group to really take us into the future.
Well, I hope they're listening and accepting the charge and bringing friends along with them, because we have such a diverse, rich, important history. It would be sad if we didn't collectively make the most of that and get Birmingham where we need to be. One last question. You mentioned that there's an event coming up in August, and I want to make sure we have a chance to share that with the audience so that they can be on the lookout. Will you tell us about that?
Sure. So we have two woven together events this year. One's in April, Thursday, April 25th, I believe, but it's on a Thursday. And what we're doing is we're bringing from the left and right the issue of housing, from different perspectives. Our goal is to bring people from different perspectives in the room to hear different perspectives. It's not about a debate. It's about, I think at the end of the day, and it's not really about changing people's minds, but if we can get where we say, you know what, I understand where they're coming from. I don't necessarily agree with that solution, but I can understand their perspective instead of villainizing the other side. That's what our hope is. So we're focusing on the housing situation from the left and the right and providing solutions and how to move forward. Then in August 25th, which is a Monday, we're bringing in Kurt Gray, who just came out with a book. He's a moral psychologist that is going to look at how we overcome. He has a book called Outraged, Overcoming Our Political Divisiveness to Get to Common Ground. And he's really going to talk about the steps involved in how we come together as a community to overcome difference and to arrive at common ground. And we just feel like that's needed more than ever. So that's why we're focusing on this. And it's open to the public. We charge $5 just to lock in people so that they commit to coming, but it's open to the public and anyone can attend.
Wonderful. Chris, Nanni, thank you so much for your leadership, for your collaboration. I'm going to continue to reiterate that, for bringing people to the table and showing up in spaces and in rooms that are necessary for us to be who we know we should be as a region. Again, we're grateful that you're here and looking forward to the events to come, and more importantly, the impact to come because of the work that you're doing.
And I just want to end by saying I really, truly appreciate the work that you all are doing at Prosper. I think it's a huge challenge, but it's important work. And I would rather, at the end, even if it's a failure, which I don't think it is, but I think it's important that we try. And we don't sit on the sideline and be paralyzed, but that we participate in the process and we give it all we can. And you all are doing great work.
Thank you. I could not have said that better. I appreciate it. Thank you for joining us, Chris.
Thanks.
Thank you. I'm Angela Abdur-Rashid. Thank you so much for joining us for this episode of the Prosper Connector podcast. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on all your streaming platforms at Prosper BHAM. That's at Prosper BHAM. And while you're at it, visit our website at www.prosperbham.com. We'll see you next episode.